This is the Odd Atheist Friends Podcast. What you are about to hear is just the opinions of Matthew and Eric, who are the hosts. This podcast will talk about life, love, politics, religion, and whatever else runs around their heads in the moment. Their opinions are just that, opinions, and only their opinions. It does not represent anyone else but them at that moment in time. Not their significant others, family, friends, employers, companies, or anyone else that they might know. You are probably going to hear cuss words. The hosts cuss and really don't care if any guests cuss too. If you are offended by something, this probably isn't the podcast for you. But if you like what you hear, please keep listening.
And here we are again for Odd Atheist Friends 9. Jesus, is this 9?
Yeah, but you probably shouldn't say Jesus. We're on episode 9 already.
Well, fuck your God. God damn it.
Exactly.
Oh, well, speaking of somebody fucking God who says fuck your God a lot, we have, hold your fucking horses, our two listeners. Noah Lugeons, the host of, all the podcasts. Wait a minute. Isn't there 9 people who have all the podcasts? Anyways, Noah, with all your podcasts, say hi.
Hi, how you doing, man?
I am fucking awesome, and I am super stoked. Please let our two listeners know who probably hear you and who know who you are. How about a brief introduction of your super funny podcast of Scathing Atheist and god-awful movies and all that kind of stuff? So, yeah, tell us about yourself.
You bet. You bet. I am desperately trying to keep up with Thomas Smith in terms of total number of podcasts. He's at 4. So we're rapidly working to catch up. But at first it was pretty easy because he just had Thomas in the Bible and we had Scathing Atheist, and it was going great. Scathing Atheist was just sort of a like a news show, a sort of a current events comedy show. And then he came out with Atheistically Speaking, Now Serious Inquiries Only. And we're like, well, shit, now we got to do something that's got some political aspect to it. So we started doing the Skeptocrat, and then he started doing a comedy show, and we're like, well, we know a funny guy. What about that Eli fella? He'd probably do a show with us. So we started doing god-awful movies where we break down Christian movies, and then he hooked up with Andrew and started spreading the work around. So we went and got Tom and Cecil from the Cognitive Dissonance podcast and started yet another show that's going to debut on Wednesday the 17th. Not sure when this airs, but Wednesday the 17th, called Citation Needed. And at the moment, we're at Detente, and we hope to stay there.
So he's a brother from another mother in a lot of ways. So are you copying him? Or who's copying who there?
I have feet, right? So, I feel like I'm already ahead in the race one way or the other. Now, that's going to sound really weird if you don't listen to our shows, but we have a long-standing argument about whether or not Thomas has feet. There has been evidence provided on both sides, to be fair. Some of the evidence is a little more convincing than others.
Yes, definitely. The blade feet that I saw that somebody had managed to find on the internet was probably one of the funniest things I've seen in a while. But there was a lot of shit that went on both sides. And then, I saw pictures of what happened during the last Reason Con where where Thomas bought his long-form birth certificate with his foot, and then people are saying, well, bring your real one, how do we know that's real, a.k.a., what was going on with Obama and his birth certificate. So it was all super fucking funny, and how the fuck did that happen? What happened with Thomas and the feet? How did that start?
Well, okay, so just before we get to that, I want to throw a little funny postscript on the ReasonCon story, because we talked to Thomas about doing this bit, and he says, I'm going to come out with my foot certificate, and then you guys say long form, and I'll have 8 pages printed out on it. So he goes online to find birth certificates, just so he has something to print out. This is going to have a footprint on it, right? So it'll look like a foot certificate. So the first thing he finds online, of course, is a mock Obama Kenya birth certificate. So that's actually what he used for the prop. That and a bunch of his tax information at the bottom. So if you ever want to, steal Thomas's identity, take a really close look at those pictures. I think there's a lot of revealing information there. If he ever runs for office, he won't be able to pull a Trump. So.
Oh my God!
But that honestly has started with Eli, and Eli is just the wackiest human being that I've ever met. If you've ever heard him on the show, yes, he's like that all the time. He never takes a break. I've been in a car with him 12 hours both ways, and he is never not on. And he's learned, he's got a big social media presence, and he's learned, I think, the golden rule of how to maintain, a steady stream of content in a sort of user-generated world. And that is, whenever you're starting to scratch your head, you start a fight with somebody else and try to pluck their audience off a little bit. And his decision was to start a fight with Thomas. And I think that's good, because I think we can take him. There's three of us. There's just one of him. He's he's mobile, but he's not super mobile.
And he's, honestly really kind of skinny. And there is three of you. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean...
Well, I am in no place to call anyone skinny. So, Thomas is a bit of a fat ass to me, but, that's just my assessment. It's all relative.
Yeah. I actually have one little bit of... how can I say this? I actually need to tell you a slight secret that's actually known to some people here on OAF that I've said a couple of times. I was afraid of my mouth working when I met everybody at GAM Live in Chicago. Aww. I was so overloaded with meeting everybody that when I had said about, well, this is why Dillinger got shot, it was a random thing that I remembered that it's a kind of a cool thing, because I'm just a great big giant fucking nerd, that I remembered some random bit of trivia about this thing, and it was the one thing I could say that would make me sound at least halfway interesting, because I was afraid of my mouth and my brain connecting. So we had a little bit right at the end where we were talking a little bit. That's when my mind was finally starting to get out of being in overload spin, and actually the gears were starting to slow down a little bit to actually where I was able to engage the clutch, so to speak. So...
Well, I gotta say, obviously I'm flattered, and it just seems kind of weird because it's me. It doesn't seem weird in general, but it seems weird, to me. But isn't that just kind of the world that we live in now? Like I went to Nexus, to the Northeast Conference on Science and Skepticism that the Skeptics Guide to the Universe puts on every year. I've been to more of them than I've missed, I do believe. And I met Dwayne Reed, and I see Steve Novella getting like Mentos, like 3 people ahead of me in line, and I'm all excited and sweaty palmed and everything, and I'm just like, no one else in this Manhattan Dwayne Reed gives the slightest fuck about this gray-haired dude in line in front of him. But to me, there are a few celebrities I'd be more excited to have 5 minutes with. So no, I totally get it. It's just kind of the weird world we live in, where among the things that we all get now, we all get our own celebrities. So
And I think that's actually really kind of cool, how social media has made who would be unimportant people in actuality in some ways important. Because I think everybody wants their 15 minutes or so of fame, but I also think that the reason why this is better is because there are so many of us now who are out there who can put out our opinions as to what is going on out there, and trying to keep, as I call him, Cheeto Leany in some kind of check, because he has just been literally the worst person ever. I
think that's a really close. I mean, there are obviously contenders, but I think you could make a pretty good argument. I mean, we don't know how this all ends, so it may be a slam dunk by the end of it, but...
I mean, but I don't know about you, but I look at this guy and I just see... a guy who's way worse than Nixon ever could have thought to be. And he said, I'm going to drain the swamp. And I was thinking, no, motherfucker, you are the swamp. And he turned out to be. I mean, like, people were all saying, oh, well, Hillary is so connected to Wall Street business and all that kind of stuff. But that's all who he brought in. Mm-hmm. I mean... he literally is
the billionaire is not connected to Wall Street businesses. Come on, people. He's a billionaire.
Exactly. Oh, fuck me. And so, I know that, well, for one, Noah, I want you to slap yourself for not doing Skeptocrat for those 6 months. You hurt me. I'm sorry, but I got to bring you a little to task on that. I love you, brother, but that hurt.
Well, I gotta say, man, there became a point where the futility of it was overwhelming, and to be honest, that's still sort of the case, because like we have built ourselves from the beginning as far center, right? That's sort of the Skeptocrats' mission statement, is not to be ideological but to be evidence based. And as a person who's far center, who has pretty moderate opinions on most things, I mean, Hillary's your dream candidate. Right? If you're
as far as current political climate goes, yes, that's where she is.
Yeah. And yes, there are some flaws, but if you compare her to basically any other president we've ever had, and you compare those flaws, it's just like, they're pretty, they're pretty minor when you consider the experience that she'd bring to it and everything. I was actually very excited about Hillary, and it got to the point where, like, if I say anything remotely complimentary about Hillary, I've got 600 fucking emails from the Bernie supporters in our listenership saying, hey, your listeners like Bernie better, you should like Bernie better. And I'm like, look, I'm just, it's nothing against Bernie. I'm just blown away by what an incredibly qualified candidate we've got in Hillary, and I think I'd be really fucking impressed to see what she can do with the country. Now, Barack Obama was a transformative candidate. There's a lot of voters that just grew up with Obama. They've been only politically aware since he's been president, and maybe it's a lot easier for them to wrap idealism around the presidency. But until Barack Obama, I never saw the presidency as a place for idealism. I didn't want idealism in my president. Now, obviously, the ideals that Barack Obama stood for in his elections, those were ideals that I could really get behind, so I sort of like set that aside, and I thought that he was an important transformative president. And after Bush, we needed somebody who was the exact opposite of Bush in every possible way.
That guy was horrible.
But now you can compare him to Donald Trump, right? So, like, how horrible was he?
In retrospect, Donald Trump is far worse.
Yeah. The bar been lowered?
Seriously, and as somebody said, roll over the bar. Trump isn't rolling over the bar; he's rolling under the bar. I've been following politics pretty closely since about '84 is when I really started paying attention to politics. Kind of aware a bit of it in '82, but '84 is when I really remember really starting to follow politics. And so things have radically changed, and not necessarily for the better. They just keep getting downhill. The Republican right, well, I want to say the entire political spectrum is skewed so far to the right that Bernie Sanders, as far left as he is, was appearing as what would be a classic liberal. He's not. And Hillary would be a classic Republican, almost as much as what, I'm trying to think of his name, Eisenhower was like. Because that's how far right and authoritarian we've become.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. That, like, I could very easily see, if we were a more European nation as far as our political leanings, you could very easily see Hillary Clinton as your conservative candidate and Bernie Sanders as your liberal candidate running against each other. And if that was the case, wow, what a great fucking world we'd live in, right?
No
if it was going to be one of them.
Shit.
But America just seems to be so far behind the time. And I think, some of it just comes from our isolation that, Canada's there, but who the hell ever goes to Canada? And, then, we've kind of kept the brown people parts south of us as close to the third world as we possibly could. And so we don't have to see the country right next to us doing better than us, the people being happier than us. It's easy for us to paint this picture of Europeans as being like this overtaxed, overworked, underemployed, swamped with immigrants masses, because we don't go there. We don't see it. And when we do see it, we see these very anodyne, sanitized version of it because, let's face it, the people of London aren't going to hang out in Buckingham Palace and shit.
No.
So, but in Europe, you really have to see that. If there's a country right next to you that's socialist and you're not socialist, and you're just going like, wow, that seems so much fucking better. Why aren't we doing that? Then maybe there's a different pressure.
Yeah, I was seeing, what was it, one of the Scandinavian countries. I don't know if it was Norway, Sweden, or Denmark, but one of them. The countries that are actually, like, socialist and doing really, really well with, like, 97% happiness in a country or some shit like that. I forget what it was. But anyways, one of those countries went to a 4-day work week. And not working 4 10-hour days. We're talking working 36 hours a day, 36 hours a week, and then going, yep, time to go home. So they're working 4 8-hour days and going, time for the weekend, baby, it's Thursday.
Right.
TGIT. What the fuck? Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and God knows that's kind of where we need to go. If we made 32 hours the standard work week, all of a sudden we can get to that like 4% unemployment that we want to. Right, but that requires everybody sharing the pie a little bit more equitably, and we have an ingrained political resistance to that. That's just it's so deep in our culture that people in a lot of the like more rural parts of the country just don't even see that there is a legitimate alternative.
Yeah. I'm from near Chicago, in the southwest suburbs. And so I have, I served in the military for 20 years. I'm retired Navy, and I've done like 5 tours to Iraq, 3 for Iraqi freedom, 03, 04, and 05. So I have very good friends of mine that I served with who are real conservatives. And I still got 1 or 2 on my friends list who are Trump supporters. And,
I can see why your animosity towards George W. Bush is slightly more than mine.
Because I served in the military underneath Bush, and that guy was a clusterfuck. God damn, that guy was bad. Well,
I gotta be honest, we haven't had a good foreign policy president in a long fucking time. Because Clinton was not good. Obama was not particularly good in foreign policy. It's been a long time since we've had somebody super competent, running our foreign policy.
And the last person who was actually fairly decent in foreign policy was our last real Democratic president was Jimmy Carter.
Yeah.
And I think he was the last one who was actually fairly decent. Now, he was when I was... What was it? That was 79 when he got out of office. So, yeah, I was an early... I don't even think I'd made 10 years. Yeah, I was 10 years... In 1980, I was like 10 years old. So,
right.
So,
might have some rose-colored glasses on in terms of that. But.
A little bit. I knew that by the end of the presidency, especially when the hostages were taken in Tehran... And then when Reagan stepped in, I don't know what was going on behind the scenes. I've seen things from a couple of different versions, so I don't know exactly what's true or if all of it's true to some degree. But when Reagan came in, the hostages got released, and everybody really started sucking Reagan's dick more.
Mm-hmm.
But by the time the 7 years came in, he got to his re-election, and by halfway through his re-election, he was starting to get, is the president suffering from Alzheimer's, and then you had Iran-Contra and all that kind of stuff, and, my only one presidential impression, are you ready?
Oh, by all means.
Okay. Well, I forgot. My Ronald Reagan impression. There's my one and only impression that I do.
Every Ronald Reagan impression starts with well. But I'll say, I think George Bush Sr. was pretty decent in terms of foreign policy, especially when you compare him to what we had, what we got afterwards. And
his son was worse. But his dad was good.
Yeah, the son was pretty fucking awful, but but when you look back on it, there's plenty to fault George Bush Sr. with, but when you look back on the time, the innocent, nice, beautiful time when that was the bad Republican president, right? Was Reagan?
I know.
And Bush. And it's just we've gone downhill by so many orders of magnitude because like George W. Bush was, I think, probably at the time a legitimate contender for like top 5 worst presidents of all time, right? So, and
are you talking about his dad?
No, George W.
Okay.
So I think he was, a legitimate contender on that list. Obviously, there was probably a couple of presidents, back in the day, post Civil War that you could fault a little bit more. But
what was that one guy who said he wasn't going to be a pussy, so he stood out in the rain giving a speech for like an hour, and then he got fucking pneumonia and died?
It's a shame because he would have probably been an awesome fucking president. Yeah.
Yeah, but now because of that, he's seen as one of the worst, and it's like, man, if he wouldn't have, but this goes back to that stereotypical male bullshit. Oh, you're not tough enough if you don't do blah blah blah. You know what I'm saying? So, I couldn't even imagine what that was like back then. I mean, I remember, as I said in one of the past episodes, I was playing with, I've got a cousin who's literally 6 weeks younger than me, and a female. And so, I've said in the past on this thing that I was playing with their Barbie dolls, and my uncle, her father, clipped me upside the back of the head and said, "Boys don't play with dolls." And I'm like, well, G.I. Joe, thinking now, G.I. Joes are the exact same fucking thing with guns. They're fucking dolls.
Right, dolls with guns. It's the most bizarre fucking thing. Yeah, no, I suffered through a ton of that, because I grew up in the 80s. I wore my hair long back then, and I kind of got to like it because I have a ridiculous cowlick that doesn't come out when my hair is long, and also I have a spot, like a birth mark in the back of my head where my hair comes out white, so it's like a little skunk stripe. So rather than letting kids make fun of it, I covered it over with longer hair. But in addition to that, I had stuffed animals, and I liked, some girly cartoons. I liked My Little Ponies. That was a pretty badass cartoon, honestly.
It really was. And I remember watching Gem.
Surprisingly good.
Do you remember Gem, the cartoon?
I don't think I watched that one. I remember it being a thing that existed, but I don't think because I was probably buying too much into that's girly. My Little Pony has a badass villain, so it's okay.
Well, my cousin, like I said, we would watch cartoons. We're 5 weeks apart, for fuck's sake. You know what I'm saying? And so she would watch Jim, and I'd be like, oh, whatever, man. But I thought it was a really good fucking cartoon. I wasn't going to admit that I liked the cartoon. Mm-hmm. The music was snappy and decent for 1980s cartoons. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it was a pretty common experience, I think, in 1980s that, when your buddies were coming over to spend the night or something like that, you had to hide your Cabbage Patch Kid, right?
Fuck yeah. I didn't have one, but my cousin did. And so she'd be doing whatever, and I'd be like, do, playing with her fucking Cabbage Patch Kid. And,
And you're like, yeah, I'm not allowed to do that. That sounds kind of cool. Well, see, that's the thing is that, people tend to look at sexism, I think, as just something that affects women. And I've long identified myself as a feminist and proudly, and often that, that leads to a lot of problems for a person. But, but mostly it's driven by that. It's driven by the fact that when I was a kid, I wanted to spin a fucking baton. That seems so cool, watching those chicks spin those batons like ninja weapons and shit and catch them behind
But if you said it was a bow staff, you were fine.
Right. It was fucking ridiculous. And there still exists this kind of thing where, it's there's definitely a stigma about what's a boy's thing to do and a girl's thing to do that affects girls. Like, that girls are discouraged from a lot of things that, they're discouraged from sciences, they're discouraged from a lot of sports, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a huge swing the other way, too, right? So that, if I was growing up as a boy and you wanted to do ballet, which is another thing that I wanted to do, I thought that would look really fucking cool. But, you're just kind of socially pressured away from that, so yeah, I would have had a much happier childhood if we were a little bit closer to gender equality in this country, I think.
Yeah, well, you hear about those the guys who do ballet, and everybody I knew said, oh, that guy's a fag. And I'm like, because he dances with a woman, he's a homosexual? I mean, I bit into it. I actually became the hyper-religious kid who sometimes brought a Bible to school. So, and yeah, my first
episode... I bet they loved you at that school. You were so popular. You got invited to all the parties.
Super popular. Oh, yeah, super popular. If you listen to, first episode... If you get a chance, if you really want to know who I am, listen to episodes 1 and 3. And you will really get a good idea of who I am. And so it took me to 25 where I was starting to get out of religion and that kind of stuff then. And I didn't become an atheist until 2007. And so, yeah, it's only been like 10 years. And so, and I really didn't start seeing things other ways until just 10 years or so or less. And so it wasn't really like my co-host Eric, of course, is a trans man. And I've said to him 15 years ago, I would have said horrifyingly bad shit to you. And so, yeah, and it's really unfortunate because who knows how many people I would have been friends with that I wasn't because of religious brainwashing. So, yeah. Now
he only says mildly awful things to me now.
Mildly, but you know, sometimes I got to admit that the cis are awful and we've done horrible shit. So, yeah, to heck with all of us. That's a reference to Marissa McCool's new show, To Heck with the Cis.
Well, no, I get it. I can understand. I feel that way myself when I'm labeled the prettiest girl in the room because I have hair below my shoulders. I'm like, guys, really? Are we there? Are we still there? That hair equals gender? I mean, I thought we were like at least moved on to a more enlightened version of this unenlightened conversation, but Jesus fucking Christ, yeah.
I'm sorry. When I was growing up, right, my hair was actually pretty short. I never really had long hair. Even for the 80s, I mean, my hair in the back was only like 2 inches long in the back, and I had 4 inches on the top or 6 inches on the top. You know what I'm saying? Where it kind of looked like that. Do you know what I'm saying? So that was the longest I got, even all the way through high school. And then in the military, you can't have long hair. So my hair at most on the top was like 4 inches long. But it was on the sides, it was number 2 on the sides and the back kind of blended in, and I usually had between 3 to 4 inches. When it started to touch my ears, time for another haircut. So I usually got a haircut about every 2 to 3 weeks, right up in there. And then when I went to college, after I retired from the Navy, and I'm like, I'm in fucking college, I can grow my goddamn hair out. And I never had a pair of scissors touch my hair for a year. And because I just didn't want to shave, I didn't want to cut my hair. I was doing my rebelling at 39. And so by the time I graduated college 3 years later, my hair was just past my shoulder blades. And so in the Navy, I was a diesel mechanic and I was a boiler technician, and so I was mostly in the engine rooms and usually had something to do somewhere lines with mechanic stuff. I'm pretty good with my hands. And so my degree is in stationary engineering, which is systems of a building, just not the building itself. So like light, water, power, AC, that kind of stuff. So I knew that when I was graduating college that I was going to have to cut my hair because nobody was going to hire a mechanic with long hair.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, that honestly it serves sort of as a point of pride in my life that I managed to make it this far without ever having to cut my hair to get a straight job. You know, I worked as an entertainer for a lot of years, and that was sort of always the looming thing, right? That was going to be the symbol of when I had to grow up, is when I had to cut my hair and get a real job, and I've managed to avoid that to this point, and I think I might make it all the way.
Yeah, well, I just want to say your hair is beautiful, and I just want to grab your hair and sniff, and hopefully some of your intelligence will, through osmosis, come into me, because your hair is beautiful, my man.
It cracks me up. People ask me, you know, like, isn't it a pain in the ass to take care of that much hair? And I'm just like, yeah, but you go to the barber and shit. You have to actually do shit to your hair. Like, I slop some shampoo in it and then rinse that shit out, and I'm done. Yeah, it takes mine longer to dry, I guess, but I mean, I don't have to make appointments and shit like that. So I feel like my way is easier.
My wife used to actually braid my hair. It was long enough where she would braid my hair. I loved it. I'm just saying.
That's the other thing. That was the other reason I kept the long hair, at least through high school and stuff. Is that the girls like to play with the long hair, and that was fine by me. But I mean, like at least when I was a kid, you know, whenever there was like a cartoon and you were supposed to see like the good looking guy, he had long hair, and I'm like, okay, well, obviously that's the way to go.
You know, but then you've got the two versions of that. You've got the super sporty jock guy with just slightly longer than a crew cut. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, he might have some spikes on it, but it's generally laying back and maybe about 3 inches long at most on the top. Do you know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, I think the gender equality and that kind of stuff, while it's moving, Mike Cousins' husband now said, oh, well, you when I graduated college, there's pictures of me with my hair. And he's like, oh, you got girl hair. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sitting there thinking, fuck you.
Well, I mean, it's you take it a certain way because it's meant in just as a joke or whatever. But then, I've been at atheist conferences. I've been at places where there are, a number of openly trans people there. And then people just without thinking about it make jokes about how my hair length changes my gender. And it's just I get it, and I'm not going to take you to task, and I'm not going to tone police you and everything.
Yeah.
How much of an ally can you really be if that's still so prevalent in your head that you feel the need to make a joke about it as soon as you meet a dude who wears his hair long,
Yeah, because you're not complying with gender norms. Guys don't have long hair. Well, fuck you.
To hell with the cis.
To hell with the cis.
I get it.
So, God, my mind's drawing a blank. Is there anything in particular? I know that you had mentioned on Seth Andrews was another guy with butter fucking voice, by the way. God damn, that guy's voice is beautiful.
No kidding.
He's, I think, the level where everybody stands, or was the guy who did the Mormon Bible.
David Michael. Yeah, Jesus, what a chocolate milky voice. Okay, so funny story. He sent me a Farnsworth quote one time, and it was just a mix-up. We had 2 donations by a guy named David on the same week, and I misidentified him and whatever. And he sent me this Farnsworth quote, and I sent him back an email saying, "Dude, if you read the fucking phone book on a podcast, I would listen to that." Holy shit. So he says, oh, well, I was thinking about doing a Quran thing the way that Thomas does Thomas in the Bible. If you know he's doing the Quran thing. And I'm like, oh, great. Okay, cool. So when you decide to do that, let me know. I'll have you on the show. I'm sure there's a lot of people that'd be interested that listen to our show and would want to hear your voice. And so somebody else started doing a show like that. And he decided to switch over and did the Book of Mormon instead. But in the meantime, the guy who decided to do the Quran thing, it's a year later, gets in touch with me. Hey, I told you I was going to do a Quran podcast. I'm like, oh, it's the sexy voice dude. So I get him on the line. I get this guy doing the Quran show, and I'm like, this is not the sexy voice I recall. This is definitely a different dude. And then I started digging around on Mormon shows, and I said, there it is. He stopped podcasting. That's a goddamn shame. That was a loss to all of podcasting.
Seriously, he was funny and insightful, and that voice was chocolate milk, man. I wanted to roll around naked in his voice. I really did. I am not. I can look at a guy and go, yeah, he's a great looking guy, but I don't want to suck his dick. You know what I'm saying? But that voice was fucking butter, man. I would roll around naked in his voice.
If I was going to suck a dick, it would be that voice's dick. Yeah. I mean, I feel like a lot of gay men and straight women and I feel like a lot of people could be attracted to a guy without wanting to suck. Cause I don't think my wife wants to suck my dick, and I know she's attracted to me. So I just feel like that's almost a universal for people. So hardly even needs to be pointed out.
Oh, I'm just saying, I mean, his voice is just so beautiful, and it's a shame he's not podcasting anymore. And I've had people say to me, oh my God, right before, oh fuck my God, oh fuck your God. I'm sorry, we've got this thing where if we do, that orison where somebody says, oh my God. So the thing is that cussing usually is either talking crossly to a God who doesn't give a fuck, or it's usually some excretion of some bodily fluid from your thing. So we're combining them. So I say, so instead of saying, oh my God, I say, oh fuck your God. Do you see what I'm saying?
Okay. All right.
So I'm blaspheming the blaspheme.
Interesting.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Not really, but it's still interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Well, just something Eric and I kind of came up with, and I keep forgetting to say it more than most. But I think it just needs to be said. So instead of saying "Oh my God," I'll say "Oh fuck your God." At least I try to. But I remember I was talking with a friend of mine when I was still in college, but it was like my last semester in college, and some woman, we were by the trash cans, and some older woman. Now, what I mean by older is like somebody who was in her 40s or her 50s, for being a college student. I believe she was a college, because I'd seen her around a couple of times about the same time in the cafeteria. So, assuming she was she might have been a staff member, but I was a non-traditional student, coming back. So, I think she was a student because I saw her with books. Doesn't mean anything, but I think she was a student. So she said, "Excuse me." I said, "Oh, please, be my guest. Be my guest." And she's like, "Oh, your voice is so great, and then it was basically like, "Oh, I bet you thank God or something for your voice." And I'm like, "Lady, I'm an atheist." And she's like, "That's a shame." And I'm like, "Look, I really don't want to offend you, and you really don't want to be offended. Can we not do this right now?" And I'm like, I was having a great conversation with my friend who doesn't give a fuck if I was an atheist or not. And you want to come over and say some bullshit Jesus shit? Dude, come on, I really don't want to do this. I know that one time you said that, I think you were still living in Georgia. This might have been like 2 years ago, where you were saying you were walking to a parking lot and some little girl went to hand you a tract or something. And then you almost said something to her, but you didn't or something. Am I remembering that wrong?
You may be spot on. I got to be honest with you. After 221 episodes, I can never really remember what I have and haven't said. But yeah. I've had plenty of those experiences in Georgia where they like sort of diffuse the atheist argument by having a 9-year-old hand you the bullshit.
And who was it? Somebody else I heard basically recently said that they had that happen to them, and they were saying that they talked to the father or something like that, and was just like, well, basically the kids and the parents both started running away, basically.
Yeah, you're probably thinking of the story that Eli was telling on our bonus episode. Yeah. A little kid came up to him and did the same thing, tried to give him a Jesus pamphlet. It was all about you're going to go to hell kind of a thing. And he's wearing a Superman shirt. The kid gets really excited about his Superman shirt. He's like, who my Superman is? Pulls out a picture of his late father, and he says, "That's my Superman, but he's in hell now because he was a Jew." And turns to the dad. He's like, "Right? That's how you guys teach it, right? He's burning in hell for eternity now. Where are you going? Where are you going, Dad? You forgot your kid." So, yeah, and now I don't know if I necessarily recommend that one, but at least it makes them think a couple of times before going out there and pestering people with their Jesus nonsense again. I mean, especially if you think about it, like you strip it away, and that is the message that they're sending through their children. That's fucking terrifying. That's disgusting. And it should be called out, like obviously, I think we've all seen the video of the guy like just screaming at the street preacher, and it's like, yeah, you're really selling the message there, bro. You're getting through. Just yell at him a couple more times, and he's going to change his mind about Jesus. But I mean, absolutely. I think there are people like Eli, and he's definitely one of those people, but there are people out there that are just, they're gifted in their ability to just show you the bullshit of what you're doing in a way that you haven't thought of yet. And it's going to be really hard for you to wrap your mind around, because that really is what you're doing when you send these kids out to say, hey, if you don't have my religion, you're going to hell. You're giving, the kids are giving those to Muslims, the kids are giving those to Jews, the kids are giving those to atheists. The kids don't make any distinction on that. They don't understand what they're doing, and to have and to hide behind a kid to do it, it's kind of like saying, like, I don't want to have the argument with you. I know I'm wrong. So, can you just be nice to my kid? They think they're getting heaven points for this. They're going to fucking level up at the end of it.
When I left Japan and was out processing in Seattle, I met a friend of mine at one of these, it was like a street fair thing. And so we're walking and talking and stuff, and I get handed a pamphlet, and I go to and the guy hands me the pamphlet, and I just, somebody goes to hand you something a lot of times. Maybe it was a street fair, so I'm like, okay, is this a coupon? And it was a Jesus coupon. And so I looked at it, I'm like, motherfucker. And so I go to walk back up to him, I'm like, and I hand it to him, and he goes, and I said, I'm an atheist. And he goes, can we not do this? I'm like, you're the one handing out pamphlets.
Yep. You started this conversation. Why would you start it if you don't want to have it, bro? Yeah.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. It's like all of those asshats. Did you go to Reason Rally this year?
No. My grandmother turned 96, and so they had a surprise birthday party for her. So instead of going
surprising
to Reason
96-year-olds. That's a great idea. What?
Exactly. But so I had to go the opposite direction to Minnesota. So I drove to Minnesota. And
if I was going to miss the Reason Rally, it was going to be for Minnesota. I'm with you. I understand that.
Oh, I know. It's Minnesota.
Oh, yeah, right. Exactly.
Minnesota.
Oh, Jesus.
Well, I took a picture looking back, because when you drive through Wisconsin, and it's 94 that I take, from Chicago, I just get on 94 and then go through Wisconsin, and then it goes to, like, some little fucking town just on the other side of the river. And I took a picture looking back across Wisconsin. I'm like, I'm glad to be gone from that fucking state.
Yeah, but look at the one you're going into. Yeah, right. No.
I know. Minnesota,
Actually,
I think, is slightly
Wisconsin.
better than Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean, I lived in Illinois for a little while, and I lived in Decatur, so I lived in, like, the worst of Illinois. And so getting anywhere...
like small town city-ish. I mean, they kind of want to be a city, or they want to be a small town. It's like, make up your fucking mind, bro.
Yeah, well, and do something about the fucking smell. That's a city that's known for its smell. So basically, like, every state that borders Illinois, I have a weird relationship with because it was always so exciting to get to them. When you lived in Decatur, you were like, it's St. Louis. That's a great city. St. Louis is one of the world's great cities. But it wasn't fucking Decatur, right? So, like, I have this weird feeling of, like, Wisconsin is a great state and Indiana is a great state. I'm just like, I know they're not. I mean, I've been to them from other directions, and they're just really crappy states, generally speaking. Wisconsin seemed pretty cool from the time I spent there, but most of the time I went there was when they were having, like, marijuana rallies and stuff like that. And those tend to be fun regardless of the state, so...
I went to Wisconsin when I was a kid for camp in the summer. I went to Jesus camp every summer.
Oh.
Not like that. Not like Jesus camp, not like that. Because they, it's funny because that Pentecostal shit didn't fly with my fucking church. Music? Oh, no. We didn't do music during church service. Fuck you. And so, like I said, I grew up...
Because church was too entertaining for them. They thought that was the problem with churches, that it was too entertaining.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, women wore the doilies on their head and all that shit, man.
So, what like, offshoot, branch, denomination, what type of Christianity was that?
Plymouth Brethren.
What?
It's about a half a step off the fucking Quakers. I'm not even kidding.
Oh, wow. All right. So, learn something new every day, I reckon.
Super conservative. Basically, when the Pilgrims left, the ones who went across, you got the ones who make all the fucking clothes and furniture and all that kind of stuff. The Amish, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. Then the slightly more liberal Quakers were slightly more liberal than them. And so the ones who went south, they ended up becoming the Baptists and the Southern Baptists. And the ones who went across the north ended up becoming the Quakers and some other stuff. In my church, there was only one other person who had ever joined the military. You didn't join the military. Most of my church, they were like pacifists and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. No, I get that. So slightly too liberal for the Quakers. Yeah, that's pamphlet material right there.
Yeah, and I was firmly convinced that if you didn't go to my church, or at least one who was affiliated with my church, you were going to hell.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing how easy it is to condemn 99% of the world to hell.
Yeah,
right?
it is.
Mean, obviously from when you're within it and everything, it seems like, because all the people the people on your street, right? The people you go to school with, probably, whatever, or maybe not. Maybe it's a smaller, depending on your religion, it's a smaller group of the people you go to school with. But it's so easy to see that, oh, no, there's plenty of people in my religion, and just, ignore the vast swaths of the rest of the world, especially when you get into these weird, ever factionalizing versions of Protestantism, where it's like, no, there's really only the 16 of us. Everybody else is going to hell. It's just the people in this building now.
I remember that there were churches that I was aware of who split up because they couldn't decide if it was little cups or one big cup to drink the wine.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Yeah, but
you know what I'm talking about?
We killed each other for hundreds of years over the cracker, and whether that was, there's nothing that you can say religious people split up over or got into a fight over that I'd be like, that's stupid for a religion to break up over, because we fought for hundreds of years over the fucking cracker.
Well,
what are they going to do?
We didn't even have the cracker. We broke our piece of bread out of a loaf of bread because the Bible said loaf of bread. So, fucking cracker, fuck you.
White bread privilege. That's what it is.
Literally, they would buy 2 loaves of bread before going into church because it was the breaking of the bread meeting. That's the and then there was the Sunday 11 o'clock, which was like there was the kids meeting, or you went to like the adult sermon at 11 o'clock. Do you know what I'm saying? But the breaking of the bread was literally breaking of the bread and drinking of the wine. They would literally break up these 2 loaves of bread, and you would pull a little piece of the bread off of the crust. Take it and then pass it.
And the problem with the Bible is people weren't taking it literally enough. Yeah, no, I get it.
No. And then drinking the wine, it was literally, I don't know what they were. They might have been gold, or they might have been pewter. I don't know. But it was like you had a sip out of the same cup, and then you passed it to your neighbor who took a sip out of it. I don't remember getting sick, but how many, you were supposed to pass it if you weren't feeling well. But how many people might have been slightly feeling off and still took a sip and passed it on? And it was real wine, too. And so, yeah, you actually had real wine, and you literally broke a piece of bread because they said, we break the bread. So, yeah, I remember that fucking church. Palos Hills Christian Assembly. Kiss my fucking ass. I don't know if you remember me saying to you the vulgarity for charity, making fun of my church.
Oh, right on.
Do you remember?
Full circle. I remember making fun of a church in that or two, yeah.
That was it. That was my church.
Awesome.
Yeah, right. And they stopped disfellowshipping with me when they found out I'd married somebody who was a non-practicing Catholic.
Oh, that's pretty much Satan worship right there.
Yeah, my first wife was a non-practicing Catholic, so, fuck me.
Okay, so is non-practicing Catholic worse than practicing Catholic to them, or...
No, because you still confirmed Catholic, so
right.
Fuck you. Whether or not you were Catholic, you were actively practicing Catholic or not, you are still a Catholic, so fuck you.
You're still taking your marching orders from the Pope one way or the other, I got, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. It was so fucking weird to me because I grew up in this little town in South Georgia, and I started off in Detroit. I started off in a fairly liberal part of the world, and wound up in this little town in South Georgia where the first question everyone asks is, what church do you go to? Like, the girls that you're going to date want to know what church you're going to go to. The new friends that you make want to know what's your religion, That's going to determine how good of friends we are going to be eventually, because if you happen to go to this particular type of church, I'm going to see you at things or whatever. So, and I didn't even know how to answer that question, because I would say Christian, I think. I fucking don't know. I'm 13. I've never thought about this shit before. They're like, that doesn't count. You have to get more specific. And I'm like, there's types? Shit.
Yeah. I remember the first time I really got asked that question. I was 19 years old and being stationed on I might have been 20. I might have just hit 20. But I was going to Charleston, South Carolina. And I got asked that question. Oh, well, what church do you go to? Oh, I'm a Plymouth Brethren. What the fuck is that? I'm like, a slightly more conservative Baptist, Southern Baptist. And they're like, oh. And then, I got you need to come to my church and get real saved, because apparently my conversion at 5 didn't matter, and my baptism at 15 mattered even less. So in my church, when you got baptized, we didn't baptize the children. You had to talk to the leaders of the church and explain why you wanted to get baptized. So that's how come I didn't get baptized until I was 15. So, and they did the full body immersion.
Oh, wow.
We had, they had like a baptismal. It was like in the front of the church in the upstairs hall.
I bet the water was super clean. Yeah, given what you've told me about the wine glass and everything, I feel like that water would have been super, super sanitary.
It was slightly cold, but it was super clean. I mean, you could have turned on the heaters, people, please.
I mean, we've done so many stories of since we started doing Scathing Atheist, of like the amount of fecal matter found in baptismal fonts and stuff like that people are sprinkling on their face and whatnot. I mean, obviously that's a slightly different thing if you got the full immersion baptism tub 2000 or whatever. Because you don't think there's so much shit that churches do where they just don't seem to think that the same rules of sanitation apply to them that apply to all the other people in the world about all the other stuff.
Well, passing one cup, or it was technically 4, to everybody in the upstairs. We're talking probably about 200 people, usually on average, that was in that thing. So 49 other people probably touched their lips to the same cup you did. And they had the ushers who passed it around had a napkin to wipe it off, like a cloth napkin. But that was to wipe off spillage, not to wipe off...
well, it's not antimicrobial or anything, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, but, you probably, you'd see the person would pass it next to you, and you'd take your sip and pass it on. It's like, thinking about it now, how fucking horrifying that is. And
especially because if I was a kid in that church, I'd be spitting in it, I just, do a little backwash in there or something like that. But come on, I can't be the only kid that would have thought of that. So, yeah, you drank a lot of little bully spit.
So the thing is, though, is that if you did... You weren't supposed to partake of the bread and wine unless you were baptized in that church, or you were baptized. Do you know what I'm saying? So usually we're talking these were adults.
Oh, right, yeah, I guess it's wine. They're not giving it to kids the age I would have been. Well, no, because if you put me in a church like that now, I'd be like, no, I've been saved. I was at, East Side Plymouth Brethren. No, trust me. I'm not going to do anything weird to your wine. There's no reason I'm putting it below my waist because I'm tired. I'm holding it and it's heavy. People.
Oh, God damn, that's fucking funny. Fuck your God, that's funny. Holy shit. Fuck
now,
you.
I'm curious about this cussing system because I'm very interested in cussing. So does it go the other way too? So do you have to say oh yeah, no, sorry, I'm late to the record. I had to take a major Jesus. I mean, does it go when you're using when you're using the cuss words for bodily functions as well, or?
No, it's just for the little orisons, like, oh my God.
Okay, all right.
All right.
So, I feel like it should.
Say again?
I feel like it should.
I mean, there's really no reason if one option includes occasionally saying I had to take a major Jesus, and the other option doesn't. I feel like you should default to the former.
Well, yeah, I see your point of view, and I wouldn't see why it wouldn't. You're right. I didn't think about it that far. Yeah, I had to drop a Jesus and wipe my God.
Yeah, no, I get it. So yeah, like I said, I tend to think a lot about cussing. So as soon as you present new rules, I've got to calculate the implications. Who knows if the rules of cussing change, my whole job gets more complicated.
That's how come I love you guys, you son of a bitch, you pedantic bastards. Let me tell you something. I've said it to Eli and privately, but I'm going to say it publicly. Eli has brought me to tears almost on some of the things that he's said, and he's made me spray cola on my windshield more than anybody else. Don't get me wrong.
I want to warn you. We've got an episode of GAM coming out on Tuesday, and that was the first time he ever made me literally spit as I'm doing the record. Like the pop filter saved the microphone a couple of times. I think Eli may have just been at his best on this upcoming episode. It's a movie called Heaven Bound that we did, and let's just say Eli was in quite a mood. He was feeling inspired for some reason when we did the record, and it is about as much fun as I've ever had recording with that guy, and that's really saying something.
Yeah, I love all you guys, and I know Lucinda, your beautiful wife that you've been married to for a long time. Congratulations, by the way, for being married for like 23 years now, almost.
21. Yeah.
21. So, anyways, I know that you did a something about her the other day, and that you guys are winning against the Christians and you're not even playing. That was fucking epically funny. And so anyways, I love listening to This Week in Misogyny, and I really hope that she does more, because I love listening to her point of view, and I know she's got something to say.
Well, I gotta say, we've talked about it a number of times, and if I had the additional time to help in the formatting and editing and all that stuff, and she had the additional time, like, we would love to make that its own show, just like a 30-minute show. And because I think there are a lot of people that that particular segment has a pretty huge following. Like when she takes a week off when she's sick or something like that, like she was a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
I hear about it. And I think that there would be a lot of support for that. I think a lot of people would really love to hear it. But it's just it's a matter of, and she does a lot of stuff behind the scenes.
I'm sure
for the other shows. She is basically a full-time employee of our company. So it's just a matter of, we have this much butter we can spread over how much bread and
exactly. I get it. I'm just saying, I just love listening to her talk and hear her point of view about misogyny. Like I was saying, it wasn't, it's only been 10 years since I've deconverted, and listening to you guys and COG was have really helped form some of my opinions that were unformed. Do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so, listening to what misogyny is and that kind of stuff. And I've said some horrifying shit in the past that I'm really sorry for. And so, it's everybody, I believe, grows and evolves through time, listening to different people and hearing things from different sources. So I'm glad that you guys are doing all the stuff that you do. I mean, you guys don't try to convert anybody, but I know of at least one person who has been deconverted between you and Cogdis.
Well, I've got to say, as terrifying as it is to learn that people are helping or using cognitive dissonance as a way of helping them inform their opinions and stuff, that is a terrifying notion, but it's flattering to find out, because we look at this first and foremost as entertainment, right? Like my goal when I set out is not to convert anyone. It's not to, it's not to change the world. It's not to, validate anyone's opinion. It's to entertain people. It's to make people laugh and to occasionally make them scratch their head or, whatever. And but then, so you think of you think of the primary product as the dick joke, and everything else is dressing to get around to the dick joke, because that's what you're thinking of, right? As we're scripting and as we're editing and everything, we're like, okay, we got to make sure that the laugh points are regular. Oh, this part of this thing slows down, so we've got to take this 30 seconds out, or this 45 seconds out, or whatever. And then so when you hear things like that, and you're reminded that it actually does kind of serve some of those other functions. Those aren't just dressing. That really is the point. Ultimately, I mean, that's what keeps us doing it, and I think that's what keeps a lot of people listening, even if that's not where the focus always is. Yeah.
Yep. Well, I think it's time to move on to the other segments of the show, but I got to say we would love to have anybody else in your immediate circle on at any time, including yourself. So if you ever get a wild hair up on your ass to be on a podcast that maybe 3 people listen to, please feel free to ask. We will be more than happy to have you or any else of your little circle of friends in Puzzle in a Thunderstorm.
Awesome. Well, I will definitely pass that along. I'll tell Eli he can come on your show and say all kind of controversial shit. Not as many people hear it.
Exactly. So. And I would be more than welcome to have Eli on. Like I said, Eli is, and I've talked to him a couple of times, like in person. I talked to him twice at the GAM, and then we're friends on Facebook, which means absolutely fucking nothing. But it's nice to, to see a little bit behind the thing, and I think he's just a great person, and I would love to have Eli on in a New York minute. So, oh, by the way, I would have to say that I've been to New York during Fleet Week, and I had the most amazing time in New York.
New York's a great city.
New York is a great city, although there is a Chicago pizza, a thin, crispy crust that I think you would like. I don't like how
that's a
your
New
crust
York
is all-
style pizza being made in Chicago. I'm sure they make New York style pizza great there. Not as good as New York.
I just think that your crust is way too fucking floppy. So anyways, Eric, let's go on to the other parts.
All I can think about is floppy dicks now.
Who
I
doesn't
have
want
that
to think
problem
about floppy?
constantly.
Yeah.
We should probably see a doctor. Okay.
It depends
So-
on how floppy that doctor's dick is. Sorry, you were doing a thing. I'll let you do a thing.
We're gonna do some would you rather's if that's cool with you.
Noah?
Sounds great, and I would have responded quicker. I just had a mute on so that I could finish off that Mountain Dew. Sorry. Yes, sounds great.
Okay. No, you're good. Okay. We'll start with an easy one. Well, probably easy. I don't know. Would you rather learn sword swallowing or fire eating?
That is a bizarrely pertinent question because I've actually weighed that exact thing before.
What?
Yeah, I do a lot of circus arts, and I never learned to do either of them. But as I understand it, you're way more likely to hurt yourself, like really bad sword swallowing, than fire eating. Both of them are actually, like legitimately dangerous. You see people out there in the circus juggling chainsaws. That's an act, right? That's not truly dangerous. But the sword swallowing and the fire eating thing is actually is. So I would say fire eating if I had to do one or the other. But I've been faced with that choice and chose neither.
Me? I would honestly... I gag brushing my tongue. So, yeah, sword swallowing I think is out. I think I would probably go with the fire eating.
I can see why you don't want to suck David Michael's dick now. That makes much more sense now. You've put it in context for me.
You just have to practice more. All right. Would you rather have to always wear fishnet stockings and shorts, or always have to wear socks and sandals?
Yikes!
Footwear's important to me. I'm going to go with the fishnet stockings. I think I'd have to go because then I could just rock some hiking boots with that, and people would be like, "What the fuck's going on there?" I don't even know what kind of slur to yell at this person.
I've got really bad knees, like bad knees as in like physically bad knees. So I wear like those compression sleeves on my knees because my knees are horribly bad. So I think I would have to go with the sandals and the socks. Give me some Birkenstocks and sandals. God, shoot me in the fucking face. I've actually got one.
Okay.
For you two. Okay,
Fantastic.
All of us love cats. I've got 3. I know that you've got at least one, Noah. How many do you have?
I have 2.
2. Okay. So all of us love cats, okay? So
I only
what
have
would
one
you-
pussy.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry.
And I don't really care much for it. No.
Right?
So the caveat is it's a 2-bedroom house. Okay? Think about that. You have it, that's the caveat. It's a 2-bedroom house. You have to either be the crazy cat person with 50 cats or be a hoarder.
Ooh.
Oh, there's no question for me. I would have 50 cats. Like like this is really honestly like something my wife and I weigh. So, how long? How old do we have to be before it's okay to be the crazy cat people?
So I'm unfortunately allergic to cats.
Oh, you can be dogs.
Oh, can it be dogs? Okay, I'm going with dogs all day.
Okay, so you would both rather be the crazy animal people than the hoarder.
Well,
Assuming I
think we
can
got super
afford.
specific. Yeah, I was going to say, we didn't get super specific about what we'd be hoarding, so I may also be the hoarder if it's like rare books and comic books and stuff like that, and just useless
talking
shit
about,
from
like,
the 80s.
I'm talking
but
like...
you're talking about the people who like save all their plastic bags and shit like that?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, okay, yeah, no, definitely a crazy cat person. That's me all the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Eric, you got another one?
Okay. Would you rather be a woman in a predominantly Muslim country or a gay man in a country that has the death penalty for any suspected homosexual activities?
Yikes. Wow. Either are horrifying.
Wow. All right, so like basically it's like, would you like a very good chance of being killed by the state, or would you like, you know, probably not that, but like kind of wishing that you were? I feel like God, what a terrible, like, you know, I shouldn't say what a terrible person to opine on this question. But I would have to say I would choose the latter simply because, like, day to day, I think, like, as much as the fear would be a thing, it's like one way or the other, like, they're going to find out you're a woman, you know? They're going to know that every damn day. And, you know, I should caveat that with saying, like, it depends on the predominantly Muslim country, because I think there are places where it's, like, a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, like, if we're talking Saudi Arabia, then, man, that's a really tough decision. But I think one way or the other, yeah, I think, I don't know. I mean, we started this off on floppy dicks. One way or the other, I get floppy dicks.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm going to go with, I'm going to agree with Matthew's answer, whatever that turns out to be.
I think that the way women are treated, because I've been to several countries in the Middle East. I've been to 35 countries on 6 continents. Yay for the poor kid from the south side of Chicago.
Yeah.
That's kind of why I joined the Navy, was to go see all these different places. And one of the reasons why I find it really funny that these kids who I grew up with, who have only gone 100 miles, let alone vacations. So I've seen, you know, guys holding hands walking down the streets in some of these countries, and I think to myself, man, good luck on you. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I think it's, especially because in those countries, in some ways I think it would be easier, because a lot of times marriage is like arranged, and you could be like, oh, I don't like her as a woman. So, you know what I'm saying? I just don't like her. I just don't think she's a nice person, so I won't marry her. I think it's, in some ways, it's easier to be undercover as a homosexual in a Muslim country than the horrifyingly misogynistic shit that they do to women in these Muslim countries. You know, because I've seen people in the full in the full plastic bag, in the full garbage bag, and I'm like, that's a person underneath there.
But it's only 116 degrees out, so
yeah, no shit. And
it's a dry heat.
Fuck you in that dry heat, man. I've been to that fucking heat. Fuck you. And I think that's the reason why that those rules in the plastic, you know, the garbage bags actually started, is because those headdresses that the guys wear, you know what I'm talking about? The you know, you see them, you know, it really does keep you cool. It really does. It works because of the sun beating down on you like it does. Mm-hmm. But the reason why that they do that is, you know, to protect the people from that, but it's black and it absorbs the heat. But it's also, I think, that's the reason why we've got the technology today where all of these fucking bullshit, backbiting fucking rules from the Bronze Age make no fucking sense, is because they were invented to make sure that you know that your child is yours, that you can pass down your material wealth to these children. Well, now we've got shit like fucking DNA and birth control, so we can make sure that your child is yours. You know what I'm saying? So this is all just misogyny and oppression, keeping these people in these horrifyingly bad outfits, because you can now prove beyond a shadow of a doubt whether or not that child is yours. So all of this fucking shit is bullshit, and so these people are doing this shit specifically for religious reasons. So fuck them in the goat ass, and I would rather be a gay person.
Fantastic. I chose to be a gay man over being a woman. So that's funny. Okay. Last one. I need to know some information first. I don't need a huge discussion over it, but
you telling me to shut the fuck up?
No, what are your favorite superheroes? Like, pick one.
Man,
if you can.
Oh, wow, that's tough. What does one gauge one's answer upon? Ability to banter well with supervillains, powers? Sorry, that was a Mallrats quote that I mangled.
Yes, that was really funny.
Like, favorite modern day, I mean, I guess I'm gonna go with Batman. Just like no powers, I know, no frills, but
Batman isn't really super.
Yeah, but he's still a superhero. He's definitely a superhero.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, no, but if you want to look at it technically, Batman and Iron Man are not superheroes. They're really wealthy guys with really good tech. Everything that they look at, that they do, they look at it as an engineering problem and a mechanical problem than having a superpower.
Right. So, like, if I was gauging it on like whose powers I would most like to have, but still be me, then that wouldn't be my answer at all. But if I have to be one of these people, I'm like, Batman's pretty cool.
Batman works for this. What's your pick, Matthew?
God damn it, Iron Man. Iron Man's been my favorite since I was a child.
Okay, great.
But I just don't, and I'm still standing by my thing that I really don't see him as a superhero because, like him and Batman, there's nothing inherently super about them unless you want.
Okay, but what about Green Lantern, right? Because that is technology. It's like alien technology that is enhancing.
He's wearing a ring.
Exactly. Is he a super? He's not a superhero either in your estimation. I think you've got a flawed definition of superhero.
Well, because
if you kind of like necessarily exclude like my favorite superhero and your own favorite superhero, I think you need to work on the definition.
Well, I really think that it's. I mean, he. I don't think he is in the same way because everything from him comes through that green ring. That's his Achilles heel, and so it's Batman.
Okay, but then is Superman really a superhero since everything he gets comes from the Earth's yellow sun?
Well,
I mean, any average Kryptonian that shows up would have his same powers, so he's just really a species more than anything.
Yeah, and on Earth, he's just really strong and all that kind of stuff.
I bet Eric was expecting a much simpler answer to this fucking question.
Hey, well, you've seen, of course, Deadpool, the Deadpool movie that came out?
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, so the guy that he was fighting, Ajax or Francis. He had his nerves burned out. Okay, great. Well, at the final scene when they he stabs him through the leg to the thing, and he breaks the thing off. Okay, he probably cut the femoral artery. Because where that sword came in, that was awful close to the femoral artery going through his leg. So, yeah, you can't feel the fucking damage. Still doesn't mean he didn't fucking sever an artery.
I expected a very long answer, actually.
Okay, all right, well, good. I mean, I figured after the Dungeons and Dragons talk before the record started that you couldn't imagine we were just going to roll right through that or anything.
Okay, so that I got called on opening arguments, Detective Matthew Maxon. I don't know if you kind of heard the story to it, Noah?
Yeah. Yeah, I did.
Okay, so I actually have a detective's corner. I was actually military police.
No. I wasn't done with my fucking question.
I'm sorry, Eric.
Superheroes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't. Okay, my bad.
Okay, so Matthew, you picked Iron Man and Noah picked Batman. So now we get to imagine you in those outfits. Okay. Would you rather get caught by your boss masturbating in your favorite superhero outfit or get caught fucking their spouse?
Oh, Iron Man would pull down a gaggle of pussy. So, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm going to fuck his boss. I'm going to fuck his wife. She's giving it to me.
One, you didn't have to be in the outfit.
Yeah, when you give him an opportunity to be in the Iron Man outfit, he's not going to not take it.
Come on.
So this is a really weird one for me because I don't so much have a boss in my line of work unless you count, like, Matthew, right? Like, so, unless you count our patrons. So either I'm fucking one of my coworkers' wives, which I've only got one married coworker. Well, two, but one of them's my wife. So in a sense, if I was masturbating, I would be fucking my boss's wife. Spouse at least. This is tough. Like in one of these examples, I get to jack off in a Batman costume. I'm going with that one.
Well, if your patrons are your bosses, you have to do that now.
That's a Patreon goal.
Yeah. That's like the $500 level or something.
Yeah, buy Noah a Batman costume. I'm already doing it. I might as well give the patrons something back. Yeah, right.
Yeah, there you go.
Me and Heath and Eli could get together and reenact the scene from International Gorillas.
There you go.
in a new way, like a reimagining.
In a new and horrifying way.
Just when you thought this movie couldn't be worse. Eli's penis. It always comes back to floppy dicks. Yeah, exactly.
I think we found our title.
iTunes.
Hey, Eric, are you done?
Yes, I'm done. Thanks.
Did you finish? Be sure to towel off. Okay, so I've got this thing where there's two things that I'm really very passionate about, and that is genital mutilation, specifically male genital mutilation, because I was not asked and I'm mad about it. And then the other one is policing the police, basically. So I used to be military police, but I see that, like 90% of them or whatever try to be good guys, but you got those assholes who are out there fucking, I'm a policeman and I'm thin-skinned, so I'm going to shoot some unarmed black kid in the inner city. So these guys don't need to be police officers. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
So what I do is I find some police story and get your opinion on it. Body cameras are being given out, and they're in most big cities now, and they're starting to trickle down and all that kind of stuff. So do you think that there should be a fine, an automatic fine, or an automatic suspension for manually turning off your body camera?
Well, I should say, my approach to this is a little bit weird, just because I grew up with a father who was a police officer in a pretty rough town. My dad was a cop in Detroit when I was growing up, and more than one of his coworkers was killed in the line of duty.
Yeah, I'm not saying they don't have a dangerous job. I'm just saying.
No. I understand completely, and so the only reason I bring that up is to say that, like, as a person who, like, as a kid, like, was terrified to see whether dad was coming home at night and everything, like, most of what if I'm looking at what, we should be doing with cops, my first thought is what is going to make their job safer. Now, to be perfectly honest, as a society, we overplay that, right? Because there are a number of people who have jobs that are every bit as dangerous, if not more dangerous than police officer, that we don't have that same attitude towards. Maybe it's just something about the uniform, or the fact that we know that specifically, like, we're the ones that these people are protecting, and maybe we don't see the guy who's doing the super dangerous job at the, the power factory or something that is also saving lives and helping us. So sort of the modern climate of, where, like, you see, like you said, that bad apple on YouTube, right, representing all of police, and because you grew up around them, that most of these people are really good people just trying to do a really good thing, and willing to take lower pay than they could probably get doing something else in order to do it. So I try to be as sympathetic as I possibly can to the police, and that being said, like, I can think of no good reason why a police officer would not embrace the concept of having a body cam, right? Why would anyone who's doing the job correctly not be okay with that when they're on the clock? Now, granted, like, look, I've had a lot of jobs, and if, like, my employer told me, hey, you've got to wear this body camera the entire time you walk around this restaurant washing dishes and shit, I'd be like, that seems a little invasive. So I do understand, like, why a lot of cops might be a little hesitant about that and say, well, my girlfriend called me and there was sexy talk and shit, and I wanted to talk back, something like that. I kind of get that, but yeah, I just feel like what this can do, both in terms of, protecting the people that the police are, ostensibly out there to protect, but also in protecting the police from false allegations, because that's way more what police are dealing with, right? Yeah. For every one case of a guy, of a cop, like, going crazy and discharging his weapon in a time that he shouldn't, there's 1,000 stories of some cop doing exactly what he was supposed to be doing, and then some guy comes along and says, no, he violated my rights, he tried to do this, he did that, what have you. So it seems like they would be exonerated far more often than anything else, or at least the average cop would be. I'd say the stiffer the penalty, the better. It's not an issue that I'm super read up on, super informed on. Yeah. So it may be that some, like, police expert would say, no, here's like 6 legitimate reasons why a cop would need to do that. Whatever, cop's talking to a confidential informant. Well, okay, yeah, obviously that's not something that person's going to be comfortable if he's got a body camera, or what have you. So, maybe there are things that I haven't thought about, but my instinct would be to say, yeah, the greater the penalty, the better.
Okay. Well, like I said, there's no right or wrong to this answer. It's simply just an opinion. And so to take from a really famous war movie, Platoon, opinions are like assholes, buddy. Everybody's got one. So, yeah.
Opinions are like Jesus.
How so?
Everybody's got one.
Fuck
well, it's just like an asshole is Jesus, and Jesus is nice. I'm trying to learn how to cuss on the show. I got it.
No, I got it. I got it. It was good.
I'm trying to keep up.
I'm sorry, my uptake there was a little bit off. I'm sorry. I gotta fix that speed drag. My bad. So
fix that floppy dick.
So Noah, is there any you want to plug anything right now? Where can we contact you? Where can our 2 listeners who already know who you are contact you?
Well, you can find all our stuff at scathingatheist.com, or just by looking for Scathing Atheist, God Awful Movies, The Skeptocrat, or Citation Needed on iTunes or Stitcher or whatever you use for your podcasting. Probably shouldn't use Stitcher, though, because Stitcher kind of screws podcasters out of their advertising revenues if those podcasts happen to have ads on them. So, you'll find us there, but we'd rather you didn't. The thing that, obviously whatever's the shiniest and newest is the thing I'm most excited about. And I'm super, super excited about this new collaboration we're doing with Tom and Cecil. It comes out this coming Wednesday the 17th. We've already recorded 5 episodes, or we've recorded 4 episodes. We're recording the 5th episode on Monday, and it's a project that I'm having so much fun with. Cecil came to us and he says, it started as a conversation between Cecil and myself, I think, or maybe it started as conversations, or 9 different conversations that all just sort of coalesced in one. But just saying, like, look, we love doing what we do, and what we've done has been a passion project from day one. It's all about, creating community, and it's all about, speaking to this group of people that are underserved and that don't have enough entertainment dedicated to them. But now we're in a position where we're like, but we kind of want to reach out to a broader audience and not keep it to atheist and skeptical positions, and still be able to have our atheist and skeptical attitudes and bring those, to people, but people who would not be inclined to listen to a show that is atheist, right? Or that is, that just kind of says on its face, hey, this is a show about atheism. So, we're still curious to see how that's going to do. The show hasn't officially launched yet, so who knows? Maybe everybody except for our patrons will hate it, but apparently our patrons are loving it so far. We've gotten some amazing support from our listeners, and just like all the feedback we've gotten has been super positive, and the feedback that matters most to me ultimately is that everybody doing it seems to be having a lot of fucking fun. And I've been a believer for a long time that if you're enjoying yourself on your podcast, there's a really good chance that the person that's listening will also be enjoying themselves.
Absolutely, and because I'm a patron of the show. I'm a patron of all the shows, by the way, all 4. So, yay, pat myself on the back. But anyways, I found it super fucking funny. And the episode with Chernobyl, as an engineer, I actually understand how nuclear reactors work. And so some of the shit that I'm the nuclear worker guy.
Well, what I love about doing this project is it brings together a lot of our different skills, right? So, like, me and Heath are super, super scripted. Like, everything we do is very, thought out in advance, and we do rehearsals on a lot of it and stuff like that. And Eli is a little less scripted. He's a little more off the cuff than we are, but he also prefers to work off his script. Tom prefers to just go in there blind and just, throw bombs everywhere he can. And Cecil is a really meticulous, detail-oriented guy. And so, the combination
of another guy with great hair. Cecil's hair is fucking beautiful, isn't it?
Lovely, yeah. He and I compete. You know, we've had hair samples sent to various analysts, and his analysts are saying one thing, my analysts are saying another. You know how it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you know, being able to combine sort of like Cecil has a really eclectic love of just knowledge in general, and he's got, you know, I don't know if you know his educational background, but he seems to get a new degree every 2 or 3 years because he's like, you know what else I'd like to be an expert on. So he's got so much to draw from. I'm the same way in that my interests are like skin deep, but I'm interested in everything. You know, I have, you know, and obviously Eli is one of the greatest skit writers that I've ever met in my life. Tom has an amazing talent for skit writing that normally doesn't really play out on Cognitive Dissonance because sort of the format of the show. So, like, everybody's able to sort of bring a different thing to this show, and I think it's a really good way to sort of coalesce our talents and you know, try to make the whole greater than the sum of the parts.
It's so awesome to hear. Well, anyways, Noah, thank you for sticking around for as long as you have. Thank you. And you're always welcome to come back to the show with 2 listeners, Odd Atheist Friends. So thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Yeah,
thanks for hanging out.
Thank you for listening to the Odd Atheist Friends podcasts. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please contact via email at oddatheistfriends@gmail.com or message us on Facebook at facebook.com/OAF podcast. We now have Twitter. Please follow us there at OAF podcast. Don't forget to support us on Patreon at www.patreon.com/OAF. This is Matthew and Eric of the Odd Atheist Friends podcast. Have a great and godless day.